Victoria, what are you hearing from your colleagues stuck in the region? What has this last week been like for them?
Well, I think a lot of people are very frustrated that they weren't given any warning ahead of time. And the fact that the State Department didn't issue a warning to evacuate until day 3 of the war when airspace was closed, I think really just compounds the frustration that they weren't given advance notice so that they could make their way out of country safely while airspace was open and airplanes were flying. I think many of these people are trying to see whether there's alternate routes out. I have friends and colleagues in Iraq who are, trying to see if there are overland routes they can take safely to be able to fly out of other countries. And I think the reality is, even as airspace begins to open, there's always the possibility that it will close again. There are still missiles, rockets, drones flying throughout the region. And as we've seen, the U.S. and Israel have not declared that the end of fighting is in place right now.
Yeah, in fact, Josh Einiger, a reporter who we talked to, said on his way in to the region, his flight was in a bit of a holding pattern at one point because of missiles or other wartime aircraft in the area. We just showed the president's post this morning saying the State Department's working to move thousands of Americans out of the region. Victoria, do you know if your colleagues are among them? Has your organization heard anything from U.S. officials about when they might be able to return home?
I mean, I think while there are certainly people who are trying to get on, receive government assistance to get out, I think the majority of people are trying to, take action on their own and see if they're able to find a route out. I think the real problem here, though, is, we've done things in the wrong order. This is a war that we initiated. In a normal situation, we would have taken steps both to move official U.S. personnel out of harm's way, their families, and also to provide advance warning to U.S. citizens so they could depart when there were flights available.
The president of the American Foreign Service Association, which represents thousands of U.S. personnel abroad, told Politico that the U.S. is in a weaker position to respond because of the administration's recent cuts and sidelining of State Department employees. I should also note there's no confirmed ambassadors in a number of countries across the region, including in Iraq. How does that hinder the government's ability to support American civilians and government staff right now?
Well, what I see in this effort and the failure to adequately prepare to evacuate Americans and provide assistance is really, this is a lack of overall planning ahead of this war. Clearly, we saw this required extensive planning on the military side between the U.S. and Israel, but what didn't happen was the planning for American citizens and the protection of the staff. What this tells me is that, the policy-making process has broken down. And what I saw before I departed the State Department was really a lack of consultation with a lot of the senior-most foreign service officers and civil service officers at the State Department. The policy process exists in order to, provide adequate planning for just these kinds of scenarios.